one more video to go through before we get to this shop. So today's context is going to be mobile, and that's going to be inside your shop. You might have things on wheels, you might have to be modular, and then mobile also with vehicles, all the gear that has to get inside a truck, SUV, or car. How do you take your shop and transport what you need to the customer location? That's gonna be all the juicy stuff we're gonna get in today. So let's go ahead and set up the table and let's get going on this.
Already got our classroom set up. It's looking real nice. So I'm gonna go through the PowerPoint of the shop move and the transformation to everything turning into a mobile aspect. So first up, we got, this is the setup that was, it was in its last state, its last working stage. The CNCs were on a fixed metal shelf, so no wheels. And then I had all my craftsman gear on top of this like piece of plywood. The idea was already kind of transitioning into mobile. So a lot of those organizers that I bought, they connect together and you can put them on like a little dolly system. So that was easier to get in and out of the vehicles for your tools. So I was already kind of transitioning to that. I'm gonna load up another picture for you guys, a closer up to the gear I had. So kind of analyzing, I have a massive third car garage that has all the woodworking tools. Then I had this shop that almost duplicates. So I had, what stayed in the third car garage was the at-home factory. And then all the stuff that's in this garage that you're looking at, that's what I would have as duplicates. And that would sometimes stay at the job site. So if I was doing bigger jobs, I would sell tools here to work on components, and I'd have other tools at the site or inside the vehicle or whatever the situation was. So the transition was easier, but I had all this gear that I was having to throw into this garage that was half the size. So it became this really massive game of Tetris. Here is the first picture of the second shop. And we were also doing the renovations as we were doing this stuff. So that's me pulling the carpet out. The garage itself had about a foot of like indentation. And as far as the front side, there's a little cavity by the water heater. So that guy right here was a really sweet spot for me to do a stand-up workbench, and then also the cabinets would go up here. And then this fridge I actually bought because our appliances were delayed when we got this house. It did not have a fridge, so I went and bought like a garage fridge that was just a white Frigidaire fridge, and then I actually plasti dipped it black with the red handle plasti dip to help match the cabinets. So we used that temporarily, and then we got our normal fridge, but that just became like a really cool garage fridge. So this is kind of the layout, and again, I talk about this later on, but everything we did on this I knew was temporary, so I don't want to go crazy with painting walls and having a lot of the cabinets attached like I did in my third car garage where I built the cabinets in. I knew in this design I needed to make it to where I can take them off. So that's kind of where I started investing into these Craftsman cabinets, and they were metal, but still cheap. And they weren't like the craziest, most expensive ones, but they were just nice. So I got a bunch of those dudes. So here's another profile of the side. All right. So I think this is a video. Yeah, so this had obviously Christmas stuff, our flooring that we were doing, like drill press, all the small tools, the shop vac stuff, the tables, the CNCs, swamp cooler, black cabinets, all of this stuff. I had to brainstorm on how I was going to organize it, and this birthed two of one of the like coolest things I think I've done to date, and that would be the all-in-one CNC station and an all-in-one workstation. So because of all of this stuff, I knew I couldn't have things stacked on top of one another. I need to integrate all my tools into one system. So here's another angle of the progression. Okay, so you can see I temporarily put the CNCs back on the stands they were on, but what I had done is I added wheel casters to them, and I'm starting to eat through some of this crapola. And then I did upgrade my miter saw with a little dust hood. I'll get into that in a little bit. And then, so it's starting to piece together here, right? So we have the cabinets, the standing workstation. That was definitely designed to be, I had the laptop out there. So if I needed to stand and do SketchUp or 3D CAD, I could stand up there and do all my work and then turn around and then actually build it and then get things going that way. And also had the CNCs out there, so sometimes I would do offhand programming on this workstation here. This is a storage cabinet. You can see beforehand they were just these very cheap little cabinets that we had in one of the closets at our old house. So instead of throwing them out, I repurposed them. I just threw a wood frame on the bottom, wheel casters, put one there, bridged the two with their own independent cabinets. And I believe I have lights in them in this next picture. So I had the top, this is just miscellaneous like organization stuff, and then the top one where you can get to easier, that had the safety gear. So any like bandages, gloves, fire hydrant, or fire extinguisher, sorry. Not a fire hydrant in your garage, that would be kind of nuts. And then safety goggles and ear protection. And the next guy, you can see I'm kind of piecing it together, upgraded to a big, nice Cobalt style toolbox. So that was gnarly and super heavy. And then this is starting to get pieced together. And here's the interlocking storage station that I was talking about. So these all interlock, and then this becomes a dolly. So you can just wheel your stuff around. And here's another area. So the sun would come up and beat on that garage door, and it just made it miserable to be in this garage. So I went and got that styrofoam that was about 1.5 inches thick. You can get them 2 inches thick. That one side's just like a white plastic, the other side's aluminum. So I custom cut, and I put that inside the slots of the garage door. And somewhere later I have a heat gun now showing the temperature difference. It was anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees difference in temperature, and this is Arizona, so the garage door was getting like 130 degrees. So that was one big mod I did to keep the heat off. And then as you see here, I used that same Craftsman Versatrack, and I made a little storage unit for wood, basically taking their 8-inch long hanger that you would use for like landscaping stuff, and I just used my drill press and drilled in a nice 5-inch hole down the center, and then put these dowels over it. It's dowels that you would use like in your closets, like that kind of same diameter. So I had my wood hanging up there. I had the miter saw on its own station with a shop vac, and then I had, of course, our all-in-one unit. So you can see the picture starting to come together, and then I'll illustrate on this next slide the storage for the trailer. So the trailer could be stored inside, or it could be stored on the outside next to the house, and the trailer folds up in half. What's beautiful with this trailer is that it's on wheels. So when it's in the vertical stage, then I could just roll it wherever I need it to go, take a couple bolts out, lay it down, and then I would hook it up to wherever I needed. So that was a very important detail when it came to transportation, deliveries, or picking up big items. That was just a cheap Harbor Freight trailer. I think I paid like $500 when it was all said and done, after I got the permanent license, or the permanent license plate and all that other good stuff. And that's the one that you buy as a kit and you build it yourself. And I'll go over a quick video of that later on. A lot of this stuff is going to be its own video, because it's not so much like the first shop where it was all built in and it all interconnects. These are all their own independent pieces, so they're going to get their own glory on their own video. That way I can really focus in on details while making the video like 3 to 4 minutes. So it's quicker details, it's not so elongated. Like these videos, there's so much work that goes into just organizing my thoughts on this stuff, but really I'm just paving a foundation so that way I can talk about all my newer stuff. So that's kind of where we have to go backwards in order to go forwards here. Next up on the list is the close-up of the miter station. So when you're working in a shop that's small, for example, the last shop I had a separate third car garage, I did all the woodworking. So all that dust stayed there. Now I'm in a space that is directly connected to the house. It's connected to when we're loading in groceries, everything else. This is a traffic area now. So out of all the tools, the miter saw and the table saw are the biggest mess makers. So I ended up finding this hood vent, and it worked out really nice. It had a cool little LED light around it. And then I put my shop vac that was on the first gen CNC. I repurposed that for this guy, so I put it on the bottom of this cart, and then I fed the hose through the back and the bottom, like up and around, and into the miter saw. So the miter saw had the hood itself to catch the bigger stuff, and then I had a shop vac coming up to it with the remote. So when I was ready to use the saw, boom, hit the remote, turn that saw on. And these new saws were all cordless. So a lot of the stuff I was buying now, I was converting all my corded tools to cordless. Again, because I'll get into this in a little bit. The shop had like 2 outlets. First outlet, I was using the fridge. And then the second outlet was the one in the ceiling for the garage door. So it was easier at the time because I was doing a lot of mobile stuff anyways. Then I have to worry about plugging into the wall at your customer's house to have everything cordless. But it was a really good tool for the garage. And you have a small workspace, and then you don't want cords going everywhere. Cordless, and then also for the power or the lack of power. But I ended up adding more power for the CNCs, and I'll get into that in a second. So we have, next up is this machine right here, this all-in-one unit. Reflect back to that picture of everything is on the floor, all my tools. If I were to sit and give you how many tools are in this all-in-one unit, it would blow your mind, because I think I had over like 50 tools attached to this unit. And just to name a few, besides basic storage, we had all of the clamps, we had drill press, we had a air compressor line, an electrical cord line, a shop vac, table router, hand router, planer, jointer, table saw. This is a downdraft sand, a place where I could sand, and these had little perforated holes that the vacuum sucked the air down. So that was like a sanding station. I had these little track systems to clamp things down. I also had this for my vise. If I was doing some heavy duty work, I could put a big vise and lock it into the top. Then on the other side was all the hand tools. I had this big red toolbox with all my hand tools. On the underneath this, I had a giant belt sander that came up, and there's a bunch of other things that this was used for. It deserves its own video. I have a video out now that I'll link in the description. I was so excited just to put the video out there that I really didn't pay a lot of attention to really showing all the things in motion. So I'm going to redo that video, and it's going to be much better. Same with that CNC video. But this is just kind of to put it in your head, like maybe like an anticipation to stay tuned to what's to come. Lighting. When I first got in, it had one of those, it was just a generic bulb right here. So I had found those bulbs that it's basically like an outlet bulb. So you screw this in and it gives you 2 additional outlets. So from that, I was able to buy these very cheap, I think it was like $40 for those little lights that you're seeing there. Cheap LED lights, and they're very lightweight. So I basically just attached them to the ceiling and then screw in a regular LED bulb. And with the reflective garage door, it really illuminated the shadows on the front, and it kept the whole garage simply illuminated, and it was low energy because it was all LED stuff. And then because I ran it all from this, that it still worked on the power switch. So it was super easy. I would recommend that for like a quick thing. I didn't worry about hiding any of the cords because I knew it was like I wasn't really going to stay there forever. And to anyone else, that was still a massive upgrade. So this video goes into the 2 outlets I added. This video, we had the power panel right here. So we just punched a hole through this with a flathead, and then that was just to show a location of where we were on the other side of the garage. And then we ran our separate power wire through here. And I had this done by a licensed contractor. I'm just kind of showing the aftermath of that. So we added in basically 3 dedicated circuits, and I had basically 2 running over the garage door to the other side of the garage, and that was for the CNCs. So let me edit to that scene. Okay, so as you can see, the extension cords that came over the roof down to the other side, that fed the CNCs. Now, the CNCs have high amperage when it comes to the router, and then everything else is pretty much low key, like the laptop and LED lights. So the next thing was the shop vac. I had a full-size shop vac, and then I also had underneath a paint booth. So there's the shop vac, and then on the other side was my spray booth that also had a little vacuum that would suck the mist to the back. So I ran that in its own outlet too. That's why the 2 extension cords are down there. So that way, if anything happened, I didn't want to interfere with those machines running. That's a critical thing when you're in the motion of actually cutting something out. You don't want to have your machines stop. Alrighty, so let's get on with the next thing. So that after this, we're going to talk about the paint booth setup. So much like the idea of the other shop, where I was attaching stuff to the ceiling and using drop cloths, in this scenario, because this garage, I didn't really want A, to make it messy, and B, if I set up a paint booth, that's all it could ever be in that moment until the job was done. So it's not ideal when your garage is in this stage. So here's the solution. I had a cheap pop-up tent, or like a little pop-up shade, and the reason we went with that is because I didn't want to waste money. I wanted something that I could use for when we're going shooting or any sports events. And we did all of our spray booth stuff in here. So we're doing in this video our cabinets, but you could do anything, whether you're doing stain, anything automotive, you could use this setup. So the idea is I had a piece of 1x2 going across the top frame, and from there I just used like wire, baling wire, just to hold my parts up. And then I had duck cloth, and then also plastic tarps, and then cardboard or whatever you have laying around. Use that as the floor, and then whatever particles settle, they'll settle on that. It makes it nearly like brainless to do this job. And then all the sides do zip up. So if you're making it airtight after you did your coat, you could zip it up just to make sure there's nothing that comes in there and lands on it. But that's the setup we had. It fit in that little side yard, and I was able to do all the stuff in there as far as paint booth. And here's some pictures of the walls down after it was drying at that moment. So we got the doors all snazzied up as far as that master bathroom. So there's a little after show there. Okay, so the mobility aspect, everything's on wheels, and then everything that can be shifted around, and it was all integrated into one unit. So that CNC, that actually video, that wasn't too bad. So I wouldn't mind sending that link down, and if you guys wanted to know more about the all-in-one CNC unit, I'll just post that video, because I feel like that video could have been better with audio, but it was still like okay enough. This all-in-one workstation though needs to get redone. I want to illustrate that a lot better. So I'll stop here, so that way if you are even interested in that, you can take it upon yourself to get the popcorn out and have some fun with that guy. Let me go to the next PowerPoint for you guys. All right, we are rocking the Chevy Silverado, such a good truck. Now, I talked to you about being mobile, and I said truck, SUV, and car, and I've done them all. So first up on the list is our Silverado. So let's get into the fun of this truck. And again, this is just like the other stuff where there's so much that went into these, they have to be their own content. So you'll see that it's going to be its own little series. But for now, I'm going to get into the basics of what makes this the mobile conversion. So this was a single cab truck. And of course, I'm a music guy, a bass head, and I needed subs. But you have a single cab truck, the wedges behind the seat weren't enough. So I put in 2 kicker L7s. And if you know what those are, they're super powerful subwoofers. And I built a custom box to fit in the bed of the truck and then cut a hole out underneath the window to port it through the cab, and then framed it off like this. And then I added an additional 10 door speakers in there. It was nuts. So by doing that though, I robbed myself some bed space. So that's kind of where this is relevant. All right. Now, I made this bed sled, and this is before all the trucks had these cool bed sleds and things like that. I'm going to say that I was the OG. Every place I went, whether it was the hardware store, furniture stores, other clients, no one's ever seen anything close to this. So it was kind of like a cool little idea I had. So I made this basically essentially this shelf that would pull out, and I actually had a big giant fence that would hug into the back end. So if I had bigger gear, it was like another tailgate aspect. And then I had these little drop pins that would lock it in place to stop it from going back and front. But then I could articulate, okay, do I want this to be 2 foot, 3 foot, depending on if am I buying 2x8 wood? Am I buying 12 foot long wood, 10 foot long? I could adjust to the length of wood I was buying to make sure it was all snug against the back, and then actually put diamond plate on the back side of that subwoofer box. In this orientation, I'm using it as a table because every vehicle I had a table. This one was a built-in table. Now, back then, everything was corded, and I had a shop back that would sit up there, and I would do all my miter cuts. And then I had a extension cord that would just run to the customer's garage, and I would just power everything from that. But that was my setup, and I had the tonneau cover. So it kind of contained some of the dust. I would fold that down one more fold and kind of shield everything. And it also kind of be a area where if I wanted to go halfway, then I would stick an umbrella in one of these little holes in the sides of the bed, and then I could shade the whole area out. So that's how I'd use my truck. And then I'm going to go into the other benefit of doing a sled design like this is I was able to make my own custom wooden fender toolboxes. So all my gear would go in there that wouldn't get sloshed around. And then I had the tonneau cover would come and the tailgate came up and that locked. So it was all protected. And to this side, this is how I would use it to transport. So I'd have big gear. I would pull this out. This is actually a shopping. We got, forget what this was. Well, it was like a storage hutch and then some chairs. And so you're basically taking the short 6 foot bed minus 2 foot from the sub box, so like a 4 foot bed, and then extending it out and doubling it. So here's some examples of me kind of maximizing the functionality of it. And as you can see, I put like reflective tape on the backside too. And here's another scene of me loading up 2x4s and loading up a couple couches. This was kind of like a hilarious moment because we're at my grandpa's house and I pull up my truck and my sweet grandpa, he's like, "Gage, I don't think these couches are gonna fit." And I'm like, 1 second, drop the tailgate and then pull that sled out. And it was just kind of funny, and they fit perfectly. So it came in handy multiple times. And this is where it was really clutch. Everyone knows like 4x8 sheets of wood, they're super cumbersome and weird to carry. So I had made this cart and I would load in the sheets of wood from the store. Because now when you're buying your sheets at whether it's Home Depot or Lowe's, they have carts that are very close to the height of your tailgate. So that way from there you could just slide them into the back of your truck. Well, the reverse was true for me. I would pull them from the truck to this cart, and then from the cart I would roll them through here, when that would either go straight to the table saw or that would go to the little vertical storage rack we made. So in a nutshell, that's how you can use your truck to maximize mobility and leveraging the extension of your bed to be a work table, and also just functionality to transfer big stuff. Like basically I nixed out so many uses for a trailer. Like I didn't need a trailer because I could extend out. The next vehicle is your SUV. This one was really cool. So there's the pretty Trailblazer before I got it all customized. This thing was really, really cool. Again, its own video coming up. Is that there was a cavity in the bottom that you would have like your maintenance gear. I took that cavity out. I did a installation, like it's like a sound deadening installation. So I use that as like a sub cavity for my sub boxes. So every vehicle I have, as you're going to see, have to have subs. That's just how it works. So it's like that compromise of having what I want, but it's still having the work functionality aspect of it. So I made this specifically for this truck, and as these seats folded down, I made it to where it was actually, it landed right perfectly with the seats. So let's demonstrate what we got here. So we had two functions. I used really heavy duty drawer slides. These are 36-inch full extension drawer slides that would handle, I think it was like 500 pounds. So I had two of those guys, which is way more than I would ever put in here. And then I also had it bolted down to the bed. There's actually towing hooks inside the bed of the Trailblazer, so I actually anchored it to that. And then these are all screwed together. So the center compartment is just subs. That's all that's functioning. And then it's also like a work table, so you can push things in and out. These would come all the way extended out, and then I would have all my tools there. Now what's nice, and what I did is I made the top a lid. So on the Trailblazer, the tailgate, you could open it, or you could just open up the top window. So there's a lot of times where I'll keep the back closed, but I'd want to just come up and open up the glass to get to something really quick. Well, if your tools were stuck in here, the only way you can get your tools out is if you open the back all the way. Whereas this route, I can keep the whole back closed and then reach in, open the lid, and grab what I needed that way. So that's kind of my thinking on that. And it worked out really crazy good. I was super, super pleased with it. And I had integrated my amp with a custom CNC cutout logo. So my amp was there. Then I had the battery capacitor on the other side. And then that's her in her off-roading stage, all cleaned up and got the lights on there. So this was a crazy fun truck. Really, really good truck. It also had a trailer hitch, and then I had wired in that dash camera. So I had the camera to the front and I had a camera on the back. But what's cool, since it was aftermarket, I can keep that back camera live the whole time. So when you are pulling a trailer, you could see it the whole time. Now, I know most modern trucks have that now, but for 2009, I thought I was so clever having that, and it worked out really nice. Okay, so that's how you could beef up your SUV with drawers in the back. And I know a lot of what I'm doing is out there. A lot of people are, if you just Google search overland or whatever your vehicle is, truck overland, SUV overland, you're going to get people that go industrial camping. And a lot of their vehicles are retrofitted into these drawer systems. Some of them have stovetops or like other cooking appliances. But if you just kind of think about it, customizing it to your vehicle, it could be for any use that you want, but that's kind of how I applied it for my business. The next phase is going to be the cruise. And this is kind of in its beginning stage. And then this is kind of it afterwards. I did custom lighting, and I did the bars up top for storage, the roof rack thing. So let's get into application. What do you know? Custom sub boxes in the cruise. So the cruise had these little negative valleys, so I put the subs to that with these. It's just a funneled angle that kind of matched the fender. So when I dropped the seats, I could just put in. I could fit 2x4s if I put them right down to the center or put them diagonally, they would fit in there. Or I'd use the roof racks up top and I would just strap them down to the roof racks. The biggest thing on this guy is I had a folding table. And I'm just gonna put an image on for you guys. So here's two options. With the car, I had to use both of these. So I got a generic, wherever you wanna go, they're all the same idea. They're these nice little tables and carts that fold in half. So the back of the trunk, you could put that in or put it through your back seats behind your driver's seat and passenger seat. And then same with the folding like work table. Essentially like a fancy sawhorse with clamps, but it folds down completely flat. So having this was another way that I was able to do some minor jobs. At that time when I had the car, I was getting more heavily into doing like base trim, other wall trim, and crown molding. So I had the roof racks to handle the long junk, and then this stuff would all go in the back. And that's really all you needed, because at this point in time I had the miter saw that was cordless, so the miter saw would just sit on top of this, and then all the other gizmos and gadgets would go on this guy. So your car shouldn't be the excuse why you can't do any big projects. And here's the other thing I was able to do on the Cruise. Super blurry image, sorry. But I installed a trailer hitch on the Cruise, and then it pulled that little 8-foot long trailer like a champ. The Cruise was the 1.4 liter turbocharged engine, super solid, super good car. And that's how I used to move my shop, actually, with doing a bunch of little trips with the trailer. So most cars can handle at least 2,000 pounds of capacity. The trailer itself, I think tongue weight was like 200 pounds or less. Not even, yeah, probably like 100 pounds tongue weight. So you could do a pretty decent amount of moving and grooving with this setup. So here's kind of like a conclusion of all three of those mobiles. A lot of good stuff in this shop. It really forced me to think outside the box, and then outside the box is that box. So a lot of hurdles came up, and I had to just continue to overcome and overthink it. So sorry, my throat is a little dry. We're gonna bust out the oat milk and black coffee combination here. Yeah. So that concludes that. I hope you guys grab some ideas off that setup. Here is the good old SketchUp. Let's see. This shop was what I was trying to talk about. If you needed to do oil change or any other car maintenance, or you're assembling big components, the all-in-one unit, I was able to tuck it up to the side of the garage. So I had this. It was equivalent to its own independent single car garage. So that's the beauty of having everything on wheels, to move things around in that regard. And then I can move this from here. I can move this to the back. There's a lot of different wins from that. And the same thing with the CNCs. If there was any maintenance I needed to do, it was nice having these on wheels, so that way I could roll it away, get to a new component on the backside, and what have you. So this is the cleaner version of what I was illustrating with you guys. So this is the official shop 2, where a lot of engineering had to take place, and it birthed a lot of ideas that are still in the shop today. So next on the list is this shop. Boom. And we're going to go into all those cool features and facets, and then we can start projecting back to the new stuff, and then I can go into quicker videos of all the small independent projects that I can get to, and try to keep those within like 3 to 5 minutes. Just give faster, fun videos. That's the idea. If you're watching this whole thing, I just want you to know you're amazing and I love you. So I hope that you're able to get anything out of this. And like I said before, I have to talk about where I'm going to where I've like been and how I got here. And these stories might seem long, but there's like these little pinpoint of things that have added up to generate the ideas I have now today. So it's very important for me to just be able to check these things off my list, to basically go through a terabyte worth of video stuff and then slowly encapsulate it into one video with one folder of images and then delete everything else so that way I can get some memory space back on my computer. So that's how I'm going to end it today. I hope you guys enjoy it. And I'm going to work on the next video.